Hello and welcome back to another video. So if you're thinking of installing your graphics card vertically, and why wouldn't you, because it looks absolutely great, you're going to need to pick yourself up a riser cable. So rather than going with just any boring riser cable, how does a riser cable with built-in RGB sound to you? If you haven't heard of it before, neither had I until AZZA sent me out their brand new riser cables. So in this video I'm going to be taking a look at these cables, I'll show you how to install them, and hopefully I'll be helping you decide if this should be your next riser cable. So the AZZA RGB GPU riser cable comes in fairly premium packaging. We can go ahead and open this up. Having a look here, we can see we've got a little diagram for installation. And then we've got the riser cable itself. So AZZA offer two different versions of the RGB riser cable, and looking at them, you'll see the only difference is over at this end, which plugs into your GPU. On this end, we've got a straight angle connector. If we angle it up a little bit, you can see that this end is straight, whereas in this end, you've got a right angle connector. And obviously, depending on how your graphics card is going to go into your build, which of the cables you're going to need. The rest of the cables are the same. We've got 6 RGB light strips. On the other end of the cables, we have got a SATA connector to power the strip. And then we have got an ARGB connector. There's a standard 3-pin 5-volt ARGB connector, and we've also got one for Gigabyte motherboard. So you shouldn't have any problem installing this, no matter which motherboard you have. So for our installation today, I'm going to go with the one with the right angle connector. So I'm going to be going ahead and installing the riser cable in my own personal system, but before I do, there's one really important step I need to take in the BIOS. And the reason for this is a Gen 3 riser cable, but I'm using a Gen 4 motherboard and Gen 4 graphics card. And unless I do this step, there's a very high risk that I'm going to get a black screen when I actually power on the computer. So let's go into the BIOS and I'll show you what you need to do. Okay, so in this particular motherboard, we're going to need to head to the Advanced tab. Then we're going to need to go to AMD PBS. And it's the PCI-E by 16 bus interface that we want to go to. It's currently set to auto, and we're going to want to set it to Gen 3. So leaving it in auto, it may or may not work, but this is one way to guarantee that it is going to work with the Gen 3 riser cable that we have. And where you find this setting in your motherboard BIOS is going to vary depending on the manufacturer. So we just need to go ahead and save this. We're going to click on Exit, Save Changes, and Exit Yes. So just before we go ahead and install the riser cable, I want to show you what my PC looks like with the graphics card installed horizontally. First thing to do is to get the riser cable plugged into the motherboard. So I'm going to open the slot, line the cable up, push into place. Coming from the riser cable, we've got two cables. We've got a SATA cable, which is going to power the riser cable, and we've got our ARGB connector. Now I have an ARGB header down at the bottom. The SATA cable we're going to need to route through to the back, where we're going to plug it into a cable coming from our power supply. So I'm going to route the SATA cable over the motherboard through to this cutout and then pass it through to the back. And then I'm going to pull the excess cable along. I'm going to lift up the riser cable, route the ARGB cable down to the bottom of the motherboard, get things plugged in down the bottom, and then we'll tuck the excess cable out of the way. At the back of the case then I can go ahead and plug the SATA cable into our power supply. So I've found with previous installations the easiest thing is to go ahead and install the graphics card into the cable and then install the whole thing into the case. So I'm going to go ahead and open the slot, line our graphics card up with the cable, push things into place, and then we'll go ahead and install the graphics card in the case. Okay, so that's everything installed, and we had no problem getting a display on the monitor with the cable installed. I've got it set to white at the moment to match in with the rest of the theme of this build, and I think it looks really well. So I think this shows if, like me, you're not a big fan of lots of flashing colours, still adding an RGB riser cable to the build can definitely improve its look. So I think you'll agree having the graphics card mounted vertically with the riser cable looks incredibly well. But I think for completeness, I do need to cover the downsides of doing this. Particularly if you're going to use the case as a built-in mount, you can see this graphics card is very close to where the front panel is going to go. Now this is a large graphics card and you mightn't have similar issues if you had a smaller graphics card. But I would be worried thermally of having the fans so close to the front panel. Obviously there is an extra cost involved to buying the riser cable. And the other important thing to mention is you're going to have to run it in PCI-E Gen 3. Even though your motherboard and your graphics card can support Gen 4. So this might be the only situation where you add extra RGB into your build, but you don't get any extra frames per second. So I think to sum up, I am fairly impressed with AZZA's new RGB riser cable, and if you are interested in finding out more about it, you'll find a link to it in the description. So I'm just going to finish the video off by showing you the cable with all the different RGB effects on it.